Hey everybody, Reyna Joy Banks here, and you are literally watching the first ever SassKids Super Agent Safety Squad roundtable discussion. This movement was literally created by Denise Rodriguez, who wrote an amazing book from a dream that she got from God to bring forth the prevention and awareness of children's sexual abuse that is happening all over this world. What you don't know is 1 out of every 4 girls is sexually abused, and 1 out of every 13 young boys are sexually abused in the United States alone. This is a problem. So we're bringing forth the awareness to bring forth prevention to stop this now. The innocent lives of children matter, and this is her mission and vision to create a sound that will bring healing across the land. So we're so excited for you to hear this roundtable discussion. We cannot wait for you to understand the truth behind so many prominent people's stories and how they've either dealt with it, endured it via someone else, and or have seen the outcome of someone that has been through it, and why SassKids Super Agent Safety Squad movement is so important in this right now season across the world. So join us and get ready to change lives. Hey guys, thank you so much for being with us. So right now on this roundtable discussion, we have a mother, a special mother to all of us who created this movement, who actually has been impacted within her own family concerning child sexual abuse. We have a Hollywood star, we have a pastor, we have a legendary director who all have had somewhat of experiences, a psychologist, and advocates and leaders in the community that have been helping children in different ways concerning this time. So we can't wait for you to experience what we're going to experience today. There will be some laughter, there will be some tears, there will be some powerful moments to understand how everyone in some way, shape, or form has been impacted by this specific situation. And we're ready to fix it and bring prevention to it.
Hey everybody, my name is Ricky Borba. I'm a film director, a father of 5, and just on fire for helping children out in this kind of thing that we're going to be talking about today.
Amen. Thank you, Ricky. And Denise Rodriguez.
Hey everyone, I'm Denise Rodriguez. I'm the author of Super Agent Safety Squad, and I'm mom of 2, and I'm really, really honored and happy to be here.
Thank you. And we have Pastor John Swan.
Hello, my name is John Swan. I am a pastor. I'm a father of 5, and I have a compassion for the broken. Thank you.
Amazing. And then we also have joining us Jennifer Freeman, an amazing celebrity actress that you've probably seen everywhere, but also an amazing mother to Bella and an advocate for this specific cause that will be joining us for future ongoing series concerning the Super Agent Safety Squad.
We also have my former Young Life leader from high school. We won't talk about how many years ago that was. Alan Smyth, who is now the executive director of Saving Innocence in Los Angeles. And his sole purpose on earth now is to go in and rescue girls from sex trafficking.
Wow.
We're also going to have the honor to have Dr. Ivy Bonk. She's a great friend, but above all that, she is a great psychologist. She's a specialist in trauma. She was a victim herself, and she is an author, and she will give us great insights on the subject.
Amazing. So this first question is for Denise Rodriguez. So as you're a parent, I believe one of the most common worries and high priority is safety, right, with having children. So you obviously want to make sure that more kids' lives are safe and they have the right environments. Have you ever, pause, okay. Have you ever thought that child sexual abuse should be one more thing on that list, and why, of the things to focus on for parents and children in that relationship?
No, I never thought. To be honest, I never thought that this should be one thing that any parent would ever add to the list of one more, safety issue, or all, the normal worries that parents usually have. Never crossed my mind. Mm-mm.
So we know that your book, Super Agent Safety Squad, was written out of your personal family experience. So tell us a little bit about that experience and how that came about. As much as you're allowed to share.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm a mom. I have a 12 years old and an 8 years old boy and a girl. And 5 years ago, my husband and I, we had a great pleasure to have an addition to our family. My niece came from Brazil. She was 14 at the time. And when she got here, we were very excited to have her. But unfortunately, we got confronted with a girl full of certain issues that we were not used to. So she was depressed. She had panic attacks. She's beautiful inside out. And we didn't know what to do. So after long talks and trying to see what was going on with her, finally she had the courage to open up. And to be honest, I was not prepared for that. My world would just collapse. And after 3 or 4 months that we were trying to pursue justice for what happened, she was sexually abused by an uncle from the age 8 to 11. And that absolutely wrecked me and my husband's world. We didn't know what to do, how to save her from the deep hole that she was at that moment as a consequence of everything that she had lived in the past. So moving forward, fasting forward, one day she asked me, "Auntie, don't you think that we should talk to Jenny and Davi," which they're my kids, about safety? And there was again, like, obviously, but how? Yeah, you know, I don't want to take their innocence away. I don't want to suggest anything that they shouldn't know. But definitely, I don't want them to be caught by surprise with any, suggestions. So that's how the book was born, out of a need, a deep need that I had for my kids to really understand what was safe and what was not.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you guys heard a lot of the breakdown from our actual author herself, Denise Rodriguez, concerning her actual family experience with this subject. So now we're going to move to Pastor John Swan. And Pastor John Swan, you're doing so much in the community, and we commend you for it, and we honor you for it. And just the way that you let God use you to help heal the masses concerning this specific aspect of life, right? So we want to ask you, what is that like? What is it like doing the work that you do, and how it's affecting those that are around you, and what really called you to it? Like, what pulled you to that realm? Because that's not just a regular area in ministry or in life. So what was it, and how did it start?
I'm seeing an epidemic on the streets. The gangs, the drugs, the alcoholism. I'll say out of 10 people we get delivered, the Holy Spirit gets delivered, I would say 8 of them had sexual abuse. And the doors are unforgiveness. And a lot of these young ladies were sexually abused at 5, 6 years old. So now when my sister came up with this is like the elephant in the room. Nobody talks about abuse. Right. It's like, I don't care what demographic you are, audience, nationality, even in the church, it's not talked about. Right. It's like, it's an epidemic. People don't really talk about this. And we're not educating our kids for the danger, because it's mostly somebody the closest to you, an uncle, an auntie, but mainly an uncle, a cousin, a brother, someone that you really trust, that you put your life in their hands and they end up hurting you. But in a nutshell, we do a lot of ministry work, and lately, just last night, we had a young lady get set free from sexual abuse, and it was powerful, and we want to keep making noise out there, because that's what breaks the stronghold. Also, demographically, when people get delivered, they go on to be better wives, better husbands. They go on to be more successful because they don't have this past pain holding them back for something they weren't even guilty of. So that's the problem, So anyway, it's an epidemic, and we're here to bring awareness. Because if we blow the whistle, then it'll cause people to examine themselves, and they'll have to deal with it. And it's the pain. It's pain. People, law enforcement, psychologists, doctors, this is an epidemic. Everyone has been touched by this pandemic. This is a pandemic. okay? COVID, yeah, but this is a pandemic. And we're here to really break the ice on this and break the barriers and get people set free. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Pastor John. And that's to put it in perspective. It's a pandemic. Everyone's been so focused on COVID-19. But in reality, we actually heard the statistics. This specific topic got worse during COVID-19 because children were stuck at home. So not just sexual abuse, even physical abuse, period, like being hit and it, verbally abused, mentally abused. The numbers skyrocketed during COVID because they weren't, no longer, school was never a safe place anymore because they weren't able to go there. They had to stay in the place of pain. So this is huge. That's a word. That's a word. Thank you so much for that. I want to move on to Ricky Borba. And so Ricky, okay, you have actually, you're a minister as well. You actually have the Super Agent Safety Squad book.
I do.
And you tell us, first of all, tell us how many beautiful children you have and what this book has even done to you and your family and how you feel like it can impact the entire world and ministries all over.
Absolutely. So like my brother here, I've got 5 kids and girl, 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 boy, girl. So I've got 14 down to 2. And, just speaking in truth, I am a good father. It's my number one job on earth, love God, love my wife, love my kids. So I take it very seriously. So this is something for me that is a passion of mine, making sure that my kids are protected and safe. And, being a part of this panel, I've been thinking the past few days, like, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to bring to the table? Because you have the author, you have John who's fighting the good fight. I make movies, and I've got 5 kids. But then it dawned on me, I am here to talk about the other side because I was molested from ages 7 to 9 by a close family member who was 10 years older than me. And now I'm a 43-year-old man who's on the other side of it to talk about you can be healed, you can be delivered, you do not need to hide it because it is not shameful. So what I want to talk about today and give people hope about is that if it's happened to you, then it's okay. You can get to the point I'm at where I'm smiling right now. I've got joy in my heart, in my life. I'm able to look at people and have compassion. One of the things I learned was that this person that did it to me, it was done to him. Right. I don't know what the statistic would be about how often that is the case, but I know it's high. So I have compassion for this person. Yeah. But this book is the tool that I needed when I was young. Because he was so ashamed of what he did did literally threaten to kill me. If you ever tell anybody about this, I will kill you. I'll deny it and then I'll kill you. So I was petrified 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 growing up. But if I had this book, these tools, things could have been different. For him as well, things could have been different. Because he's since had children. Who knows what's happened in that family? So this book is something that is needed, but I also want people to say, look at, if he can get to where he's at, and that's just by God, by the way. I'm not taking any credit for it. If he can get to that point in his life, then I can too, because there's nothing special about me that's different from anybody else. God loves me just as much as he loves you. So that's why I believe I'm here today, is to talk about that and, to be a light.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Ricky, so much. You have me crying. That's amazing because it's interesting. I didn't know that about you. I would have not ever known that about you, because often with people that have been through that, you can usually pick up something. We talked about that earlier today during breakfast, is that you can usually pick up and sense when that's present. And you've literally been so healed and delivered that the residue isn't even present. It's not there.
Even when I see this person, it
doesn't move you. It doesn't
zero.
affect.
I have such compassion for him and love for him.
Wow.
I have total healing. Yeah. Absolutely. Woo. So if it can happen to me, it can happen to you.
Yeah. Did you guys hear that? If it happened to him, it can happen to you. You can be healed through this and from this. Okay, now you guys, we're going to hear directly from Dr. Bonk, and this is her first question. Tell us a little bit about your story and how it has influenced you to become a psychologist and a trauma specialist.
Thank you for asking about my book. Yes, the book you're referring to is called Lost: Finding My Way Back to a Place That I've Never Been. And actually, this was a work in progress for many years. And what it is like a collection of vignettes. I didn't feel the need particularly to kind of unpack all of my dirty laundry. It's not a memoir at all. It's, like I said, a collection of vignettes that address different stories different episodes that happened along my journey. And then what I did was kind of come after the story, I come back and I let you know what was happening in the background. So you can pick that up and apply it to your own life. And basically my testimony, my story is that I was raised in the Deep South. My father was a pastor, and at about the age of 6, I was sexually molested by my uncle, my father's brother. And so we could, we only know what that does to a young person. My psyche, what I remember at 6 years old, telling this and sharing this with my parents was that it was disregarded. I wasn't validated. We brushed it under the rug. Let's not talk about this. It happened. Move on. Because it didn't bode well, obviously, for my father's reputation. He was well known and respected in the community and in the state, in the denomination which we were a part of. But what that communicated to me as a young child, although I couldn't articulate it at the time, was I must not be worthy of being regarded, protected, that kind of thing. So it sends messages. And then when that happens, I share this in the book, when that happens, you start operating from that place. So everything that you do from then on is from that place of that belief system. And so fast forward till I was about 16, 17, ended up, and now I remember I said I'm from the Deep South. So back then, that was a few years ago, interracial relations was not something that was done. As far as we got with that was on World Day of Prayer, and we could pray with our brothers and sisters from Jerusalem Baptist. But further than that, no, not allowed. That could have been unspoken, but it strictly was prohibited. And so again, at the age of 17, I became pregnant by a black guy. And so this house of cards that we had been building over the years came crashing down, again, because it was so thought of as the unpardonable sin, right? Actually, it ended up forced at a gunpoint, threatened, you could say, by my brother to have an abortion. So at 6 months, I did have an abortion. But soon after that, as soon as I turned 18, I left town from this trauma and, pressure and rejection from your community, your family, your church. What that did do, although I didn't recognize it then, but God was going to use that many years later, is that it seared, in my heart, it seared a sensitivity to injustice. And so fast forward several years, even a couple of decades, and I found myself a principal at a school. And part of my role was to approve referrals for special needs testing. And so this young man, third grader, standing in front of me, and I'm asking myself the question, am I looking at a true learning disability or am I looking at symptoms from trauma? And so I went looking for answers, and that's what ended me in my doctoral studies, and found out indeed there was a correlation between the misdiagnosis of learning disabilities and childhood trauma. What also I discovered, along with some of my own further healing, because in the research I discovered some of the answers that I didn't have, some of the answers I didn't have before that. Anyway, but what happened was, knowing what I knew about the education system, this immediately became a matter of justice for me. And so since that time, that was 12 years ago now, and my whole work and trajectory has changed to focus on creating solutions, innovations, interruptions to the inequities in education system that comes from this unaddressed of the trauma. And so, the book that you referred to, Ask About, is about my own personal journey, which was kind of a rite of passage that I had to go through to be able to continue and and get involved in this larger work. Because God said, how are you going to tell everybody to tell their story, share their story, address their junk, and you haven't done yours yet. So that is how that book came about.
Thank you, Dr. Ivy. And now we're going to toss it to my good friend Alan Smyth in Los Angeles, who's the executive director of Saving Innocence. And before we even ask you a question, Alan, Saving Innocence is such a special thing. We want you to talk about it yourself.
Hi, everyone. Alan Smyth here. I'm the executive director of Saving Innocence. We are a 10-year-old anti-human trafficking agency based in Los Angeles, California. And we have the distinct honor and privilege to walk with child victims of sex trafficking. We're contracted by the county to respond around the clock 24/7 when they recover what appears to be a minor, a victim of child sex trafficking. And then we walk with her through all of the bumpy road ahead until she's all the way back to health and wholeness. And it's our honor and our privilege to serve in this space.
So, Alan, as we're talking about child sexual abuse, it'd be silly of us not to talk about the subject of sex trafficking. So it's a hot topic, and we wanted to give you some information on that as well.
In my experience, those that are vulnerable to child sex trafficking are not just in the underprivileged inner city urban environments, although that's where many of them do reside. However, anyone with a social media account is at risk. It's been said there's at least as many as 900,000 predators online actively searching for those to prey upon, those that appear vulnerable. So it happens in every community, every state, and really in every zip code.
Thank you so much, Alan, and for all the great work you're doing. We appreciate you so much. And now we're going to ask Jennifer Freeman her first question. Jen, is there anyone that you know that has actually been through sexual abuse and trauma? And what was that journey like? Can you tell us your story?
Yes, absolutely. I myself was a victim of sexual abuse when I was 3 years old. I was actually sexually abused by my mother's boyfriend. And so I didn't say anything because I didn't really know that it was wrong at the time. And I just knew that, like, you know, I probably shouldn't scream. I probably shouldn't do anything and kind of just go along with it because he was just there. And it was just him and I didn't know what he was gonna do to me. So I also didn't want to like tell my mom when she got home because I didn't know if it was wrong or right. And then I didn't want her to be mad at me if I did something wrong. And so it was just something that I pretty much held on to until I was probably about 18 or 19. And then I had like this memory that this happened to me. And it was kind of when I was going on my self-discovery journey of trying to figure out, like, you know, why I didn't really love myself, and I felt depressed inside, and it's just all of these things. And so it all connected back to this event that happened to me when I was 3. And I just, you know, I really appreciate this book, you know, this, you know, bringing awareness to this and talking to children about this from a young age, because I was 3 or 4, and if I had known that, you know, that wasn't supposed to happen to me, and that I wasn't the one that was wrong, and that I, you know, could talk and tell someone, you know, I wouldn't have, you know, gone through pretty much my whole life with, you know, this happening. And so that's been my experience. I have an 11-year-old daughter. Her name is Isabella. And because this happened to me, I was always, you know, I was really, really adamant about talking to her about her body from a baby. You know, like, this is your body. Nobody touches your body. You know, like, making sure that she knew that there were boundaries. And I think some people thought, you know, like my mom thought it was a little excessive, you know, a little, you know, too much to be talking about at an early age. But I knew because of my experience that it wasn't, you know, because you don't know, you know, usually, you know, sexual abuse, it happens with someone you trust. You know, it happens with someone who has access to your kids. So I wanted to make sure that she knew, you know, what was wrong and what was right. So, she loved school. She was 5 years old. She, you know, just started going to like pre-K. So she, you know, loved going to school every day. And then I noticed that she was like really sad for a couple of days. And I kept asking her, like, Bella, what's wrong? She's like, I don't want to go to school. And I was like, why don't you want to go to school? And she was like, I just don't, you know, I don't want to go. And so I was like, you know, there's something more to that, because I know, like, you know, she loves school. So I kept like asking her, you know, why don't you want to go to school? Is something happening to you there? And then she just blew up and she said, Mommy, this boy is touching me down here and I don't like it. And, you know, I mean, I was like livid, but, you know, I was so thankful that I noticed there was a sign, right? That, you know, she was sad. She didn't, you know, want to go to school anymore and do something that she always liked to do. And she felt, you know, open enough with me to share that this happened to her. So obviously we went up to the school and we told them, and, you know, it turns out these little boys, you know, stuff was happening in their home. And so then they were, you know, doing to other kids what was being done to them. So you know, it's just really important, you know, this book on, you know, really being sensitive and knowing the signs in your children and asking them and just making them aware, you know, of what's wrong and what's right. And so those are my two experiences.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jen, for giving us your truth and your story, and just being an advocate here on earth as you've been called in heaven to do so in film, entertainment, and even as a mother and now an author. So, Denise, my next question for you is, I would love for you to tell us about your book, why you believe it's unique and so important, and why do you think every parent should have it and purchase it for their children and their family?
Awesome. Okay, that's my favorite part. Yes, I fell deeply in love with it. So why do I think it's unique? It's not only a story. It's something that will empower your children, you know. So when I was having this download to write this book, I wanted to my kids not only to read as one more bedtime story or, oh, one more, you know, lecture or something like that, but I want them to remember something they were being part of. I knew what triggered them. You know, if I tell them around the house, well, you're going to have a reward or you're going to be part of this, they get very excited really quickly to do something. So that's why I think that's so unique. It's not only a story, but at the end of the book, the child they're going to be part of the super agent safety squad. They're going to feel like they feel empowered. They're going to feel that they're a part of something bigger. They are going to feel the need and the responsibility to say it. And they also going to feel loved, because once you start a conversation, they know they can count on you. So that's what I feel like my heart is bleeding to, you know, make sure that parents out there understand the need of your kid to trust you. Yes. And if you don't start that conversation, probably they're not going to. Right. Yeah. So the book, it's very kid-friendly, the language. You know, because, again, I wrote for my kids first. So I want them to get it, but I didn't want to take away their innocence. So it's about body safety, what's okay, what's not. Mm-hmm. I use the traffic light, because it's something like, what child doesn't like to, you know, look at the traffic lights and say, oh, it's red, it's green. Yeah. So they know what means green. Or stop, yes. Or yellow, maybe you shouldn't go there, you know? So I kind of navigate this way, and then at the end I made them understand that not only for them, the safety, if they understand that properly, not only for them, but for everybody around them. Mm-hmm. Not only they going to understand nobody can do that for them, they will understand that they're not allowed to do it to anybody else, right. You know? Yeah. So there's a huge number of sexual assault. You can attest to that if you may, that are made like children to children. Yeah. And the consequences and then the aftermath are the same, you know? So I've heard like many stories about not only adults abusing children, but children to children. So what I am passionate about, you educating your kids that you should, you know, have your privacy, you know, there. you're educating them that they cannot go ahead and violate anybody else's privacy too. You know, so I believe not only the book will bring your children education, but there's one more thing that I love to say, that it can be a repellent. Yes. Okay? So, well, let's say a babysitter. You said for a babysitter, right? If I'm hiring a babysitter, I'm going on a date with my husband, that babysitter is going to know that my kids have read the book.
Yes.
It's going to be on a coffee table.
Yes. Yes.
Because what they don't like, it's like, oh, I mean, am I going to be caught?
Yep.
If the kid
They
knows,
know about this. They know what this is.
I'm not going to. So it's a safety, it's a safety around them as well. It's a shield around them. Not only they're going to be educated, but everybody around. If it's family and friends, right? So your family and friends need to know that your children know what to do if they approached in a different manner.
This logo will be on the TV at your house too at all times.
Yeah, exactly.
Just on the screen.
In between each channel, in between switch channel, Super Agent Safety Squad, switch channel, Super Agent Safety Squad.
Yes, and I even thought this security thing that you put on the lawn, because it raised a question, what is this about? Oh, this is about safety, body safety. My kid know, so that's why I'm so passionate about it. It's not only an education, it's a shield around your family.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. And this next part, actually, you wanted to talk to Pastor John directly about what you mentioned when you guys met.
Yes. So Pastor John, first time we met, and I gave you my book. I didn't know exactly what your ministry but I just wanted to give the book and the box, and you start crying right away. I was like, okay, did I do something wrong? And something right. And then you said to me, you have no idea what you're doing. All the kids that I've usually approached you, it's not the matter what happened to you. My question is always when it happens to you. That's what you told me. So tell me a little bit about more, how you find those kids, where they are, and tell me about what you told me that day, just.
When she showed me this information, it broke me. When she presented this to me, it shook me from the inside out, because this pandemic is something that everybody needs to know. This book needs to be in everyone's hands. And we need to start educating our families, our children right now. And you know what? I need to post them around my home, because it's a deterrent. Predators love to be secretive. Once they're exposed, once they know, because you know the signs, just kind of like a drug addict like drugs, an alcoholic like alcohol. A pedophile likes to be around kids, and they always want to be with kids, and they're very playful. Now I play with my babies, but this is you know the signs. If you looking at them, that's why we really need to focus on our babies, and really need to look at family, because it's always somebody close. We prepare them from somebody they don't know, but it's the people that they do know. They let their guards down. And but anyway, when she presented this to me, it was just powerful, and I just haven't been able to shake it ever since. And I was telling my son, which we do deliverances, and he was like, "What, Dad?" I was like, "Yeah, I met with the sister, and I showed her the information." She's like, "We never see. This is powerful." So it equipped us, even in our deliverance ministry, because this is the problem that most of the people in America have: sexual abuse, family members, friends, women that's looking for good men in their life. A lot of these men are predators, and they target women, emotionally broken, to grab their kids. So a lot of it's from family, from mom to boyfriend. So this is going to really raise awareness, and we're going to, across the board, train and equip people to really just be law enforcement for this wicked behavior. This is wicked behavior. And if as long as it's a secret, it's going to continue to flourish. We need to expose it, and it needs to be destroyed.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Thank you, Pastor John, so much for that. And I want to make a little bit of a statement too that Sister mentioned. Is it more prominent in lower income communities, this situation directly? Or is there really a difference between a higher class community and a lower class community? Like where does it seem that it hits the most and the hardest?
It hits the most in the lower community, but I'm seeing it across the board in all communities now. Okay. But the demographics, lower communities, because you have one parent. So if it's a dad, raising his kids and he got to go to work, he hires somebody, or if it's a mom that don't have a dad in their life, then there's going to be a door. That's a door open.
Single parent homes.
Yeah, and predators know that.
Yes, they prey on it.
So they prey on it.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to ask you guys all a question really quick that just came to me because it's something that's happening right now, especially in the state of California. And just give me like a little short whatever, how you feel about it. But before we move on to the next person, what are your thoughts on this whole trying to legalize pedophilia as a type? Have you heard about that? Meaning they're trying to approve, and we might take this out, we might not, I don't know how far we can go in it or with it, but in state of California specifically, I don't know about any other states, but state of California is working on trying to legalize a grown person has a type of liking, and that child happens to be the type of liking that they have to where it won't be a federal offense anymore, that it will be legal. That's what they're trying to pass, which is the Sodom and Gomorrah. That's the biblical. This is the end time. So just give me a little bit of something what you feel about that and concerning that, and even letting the people know how we can kind of put a stop to it, or, be adamant in our prayer time concerning that specific topic so that it doesn't pass and it doesn't win, because that's very dangerous.
I would say this, majority does not determine morality. And we live in a day and age where, your truth is your truth, love is love. And that's not true. No. That is not true at all. I mean, there are things in life that are gray areas. And as we advance as a culture, maybe some things like the way people were treated and things like that, sure, we need to grow in things. But this specific topic with children is a cut and dry, black and white thing that is not up for debate. Right. And we need to stop making it a debate, because that person, again, I spoke earlier, that person who is wanting to pass this law or pass it because of this person they know, they need help. Period. They need help. They need delivery. They need to recover from it. So instead of trying to get the rest of us people who don't believe in it to get on the ship with them, no, they need to get off the ship they're on and come aboard to the shore and get healed. This is not something up for discussion. And so as men, John and I, as men, we have to stand up for our daughters and sons, but we also have to tell other men if we see a signal, no, brother, that's not okay. What you just said, and for me, we keep talking about little kids, but, as 40 men in our 40s, I've got buddies that, will see a 16-year-old girl walking down the street and they'll say something, I'll be like, no, that's not okay. It doesn't just have to be an 8-year-old or a 5-year-old. It doesn't matter. So we have to stand up. It starts with us. It's not going to start with donkeys or elephants. It's not going to start in legislature. It's going to start with us standing up right now. It's going to start with you. It's going to start with this book. And that's it. I mean, flat out, there is no gray area. It's a start and stop conversation.
Yep.
That's it.
Ooh, that was good.
Shut them out.
I know. I'm like, I don't even know if anyone needs to say anything else.
Power.
That's good. Yes, Ricky Borba.
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our next question we have for Dr. Ivy Bonk. And she's obviously with us through the screen. So I'm asking you, my dear, many can think, yes, it was an unpleasant experience, but was it really trauma? So people ask this question, was your sexual abuse experience, was that actually trauma? So explain to us, what is a childhood trauma? And does sexual abuse cause trauma? And then how that actually affects the person that's involved on both sides, both parties.
The challenging thing you could say about trauma in general and childhood trauma, abuse specifically, is it impacts everybody differently. So, I do remember being at a conference. I was a presenter at a conference. It was Title I conference. I don't know if you're familiar with Title I. It's in the education system, but 2017, and that's some of the pushback I got. Just like you're saying, some people may say, is it really trauma? Trauma is really all trauma is anything emotionally or psychologically or physically that your body cannot handle. And so it's different for everyone. So what might be a trauma for you may not be a trauma for me. But if somebody's going to say, is it really a trauma? I say if somebody's discounting something, they're probably disconnecting from it. So sometimes we can just kind of, do that because we don't want to address something that's we need to in our own selves. That's what I would say about that. But yeah, the variability. So, research tells us when it happened, what happened, how long it happened, all these different variables, who it happened by, all these kind of things, the environment we were in when it happened, all these things play a role in how it shows up on us. So the individual nature of this is what is really needs to be looked at and not forgotten, because everybody is an individual. And I think that really, especially for people of faith, pushes us back to the idea of being in relationship, right? Because everything, even this, the trauma research shows us that everything is predicated on relationship. And, from a creator designer standpoint, I don't think that's an accident. So yeah, if all there's a lot of research out there coming from different angles and from perspectives, but they all agree on the idea of relationship and attachment and family, security, safety, those kind of things are core and foundational.
Wow. Oh my. Okay, that's an eye opener for us, all of us on the stage. I would also love to ask you, Dr. Ivy, how can we address the trauma? And are there practical steps that one can follow to help walk someone through their healing process when this occurs in their life?
And you asked, does sexual abuse cause trauma? Well, as mentioned, anything, that's a violation of a person's person. So absolutely, sexual abuse would be a category of trauma. The CDC actually talks about 5 different types when we're talking about childhood trauma. Childhood abuse would be physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional neglect, and physical neglect. So absolutely, sexual abuse is definitely a trauma.
Okay, so Jennifer Freeman, we have your next question for you. What did you do consistently with Bella in cultivating her to where she felt comfortable to come to you about this specific topic and what was happening to her at school, or even anything good or bad? How, as a parent, did you cultivate her in order to know that she could come to you no matter what?
I think it's really important to just connect with your kids every day, no matter what is going on in your world, right? So at bedtime, I would always talk to her about and we would always pray together, talk about the day, laugh, giggle, just have this special time. But just talking to her about what's wrong and what's right. It's really important as parents that we're instilling identity in our children. We're the ones that are telling them what's right and what's wrong for them. They're looking to us for that type of guidance, but just giving her that safe space at night to be able to share stuff that was going on in the day, I think just really helped her to be open with me about that. Like I said, from a baby, I remember when she was 2 years old, I would tell her, talk about the body parts, but I would tell her, no one touches here, that's for Bella. No one, not even, if you feel uncomfortable with mommy touching you there, then I won't, but daddy, no one is to touch Bella in these places, and if they do, I told her, you kick them, you scream, you bite, you run. You do not let anyone touch you there. And so it was something that was ingrained in her mind over and over again, that was wrong. So I think she knew these boys were getting really close and doing these things. This is not right. This is wrong, because my mom already told me that this was wrong, But I just feel it's just really important for, I didn't have that I think sometimes as parents, you know, we're all doing the best that we can, right? And so I didn't feel safe enough with my mom, or that I could go to her and tell her this, even if I didn't know if it was right or wrong. And so I just always wanted to have, you know, just this open connection with my daughter, that no matter what, even if you did something wrong, like, I'm not going to hold it against you, because we're all imperfect and I love you regardless. And just always telling her, like, there is nothing you can do that will ever make me stop loving you, you know? So I think that has been our relationship. And so she's come to me sometimes with things I'm like, this is too much information, actually. I don't want to know this. But she's just so free, which is, I think, is a better way, you know? She'll be like, Mommy, you know, I don't want to say it, but I'm like, what are you talking about, you know? But I just think with sex, just where we are as a generation, the earlier you can have the conversation with your child, the better, because social media, TV, movies, their friends, other households are going to have these conversations around them. And so it's really important for you as the parent to set the precedent on you know, your faith and what your family believes and what your family stands for, and what's right and what's wrong, and so that they can feel comfortable in asking questions. I'm remembering there was this show that we used to watch on Disney, and she was like 8 years old, and we loved this show, and they were introducing a gay character. And so I knew that she didn't know what that was. We never really talked fully about like sex, you know? So I think she might have been like 7. And so I knew that her friends were watching the show. So if she continued to watch the show, which she was going to watch the show, they were all going to have conversations about it, and it was probably going to be the wrong conversations. So I took it upon myself to have the conversation with her at 7. And I told her, like, now, you know, other parents aren't having this conversation, or they may be having, or whatever, but I'm going to have this conversation with you, and we will talk about, you know, what our family believes. And if you have any questions or anything like that, like, you can always ask me, and you know, I'll answer anything you want. I'll always be honest with you. So we had the conversation about sex, about periods, about, you know, boys, about just like everything. And it was really great, because she just felt like she would come and, you know, tell me stuff that, you know, overhearing conversations at school, and she'd like be laughing, like, they think, you know, so, you know. And I mean, it was funny, but it was also like, wow, I'm so thankful that she really understood what I was saying, you know, and she knows what's right and what's wrong, and that's not just like gonna try things or think, you know, just think wrong things, and because of I didn't talk to her about it. So I think that my approach to parenting is just being open and honest, because they're gonna find out anyway. And you just want to make sure you have that open line of communication, that, like, I know that she trusts me because I told her the truth, you know? And so she always asks me questions, because I'm like, well, this is what it is. And I feel like then there's no secrecy. Then there's no like, well, maybe I want to try it. Is that really how it works? I'm like, I told you, this is how it goes. And, you know, you can make your choices, and I'll be there, you know, but this is you know, this is what it is.
Thank you so much, Jen, for giving us that very intricate detail about parenting and making sure that children feel like they can come to their parents with anything and everything. That's amazing. And I'm so proud of you as a mom for doing that. And you just literally shared this with millions of other moms across the world so that they can know how to do it too. So we appreciate you. So now we're going to Denise. How is Emily today? And what motivates you to spend time, money, and energy to push this message forward to the world today?
So Emily, my niece, she's doing amazing. We're so proud of her, because I believe the whole thing, this whole experience, let's say, gave her the opportunity to start over. You know, as soon as she was able to say it, it kind of a relief, it gave her a relief, and we validated her. We believed in her, and we fought for her. Yeah. So it made a difference in her life. She is someone that we are proud to say that, like, we adopted her, actually, legally. We are proud to say that she's our daughter. And we see she's thriving, you know, in everything she touches, it turns into gold. So that's another, let's say, example for what you said of yourself, that you can turn this table around. You just need to deal with it, you know, talk about it, seek for help. You know, counseling, it's important. Family is important. It's important to validate your child so that way they feel valued. Yeah. Because the first thing that this thing robs a child is the value, the self-value. Yep. So Emily is amazing. And why do I invest so much on this message? Because I was caught off guard. I thought I was, my sister, which is Emily's mom, thought she was doing the best, what she could. And what I wanted to say is, guys, this thing comes out of nowhere. It will catch you out of guard. Like, you will not know it's coming. That's the truth. Like, for us, I'm not saying even the broken families, unfortunately, those, you know, the numbers are bigger, like you said, but I'm just talking about here, good parents, people that love their kids. They're protecting them. They're doing the best they can, and these things still happen to them. So I just wanted to have the opportunity to create this awareness, talk to the parent at home, and say, like, please educate your kids. You never know when and if it's coming. But make sure they're prepared if it does. Make sure that your child trusts you if it does. Mm-hmm. Make sure that you're going to validate them. Yeah. And make sure that you're going to be, you know, loving them throughout. Yep. That's why I do what I do. That's great. Yeah.
And you better keep doing it too. Well, we're going to make sure of it, that's for sure. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're so excited for Emily though. And even just being in LA with her and seeing her evolve from when I first met her to even seeing her now, even this weekend, it's like two complete different people. So she's definitely the definition of restoration and God's resurrecting power, you know? Pastor John, how important do you feel like it is and believe that it is of this work that we're doing right here, right now, today, even with SassKids, and how important it is to educate actual parents concerning this topic?
The parents need this. This is a must. Yeah, agreed. This is a must. Yes. Because if parents, and a lot of parents been abused. Yes. You know, when you've been abused, you should be more aware, but the enemy loves to distract. And the thing about it is our kids are sitting ducks. What I do right now, every person that come around my granddaughter, I look at their nonverbal. I'll see how my granddaughter reacts. Because you can, if you look at it, you can tell when a child is abused and they get around the abuser, yes, there's certain body languages, I would call manifestation or body language that they do. So I don't trust anything. So I'm always looking and I'm asking her, Papa, I want to know. Papa, I want to know. Anyone touch you? Right. Okay, I got the no touch. I always talked about no touch, and this is what I taught all my kids. But this is even more powerful because we need to make cartoons about this.
Yeah. Oh, we are.
Yes, it's coming.
It was put in my spirit.
Yeah, we are.
And we need to start educating our babies and the mothers.
Ooh, I got the chills. Right
now. And the church is a very because everybody got a belief system. And this is why even Martin Luther King addressed the clergyman, because the spirit realm supersedes the physical realm just as the feds supersede the state. So when you educate the spiritual leaders, then you're reaching an audience, because a lot of them are school principals, a lot of them are law enforcement. So basically it's going to flow. And a lot of them has been, our brothers in the faith been abused.
Yes, most of them.
And so we need to really, you know, this is a powerful thing. This is very powerful. I mean, I can't stress enough. Yeah. But I know by, you know, what my son and what we've been dealing with, the majority of the people that's been getting delivered, and I mean, their life has been at a standstill, was abuse, sexual abuse, as children. Yeah. So this is going to bring a revival to this whole situation. So thank you.
That was a word, a revival.
Revival.
Something that we haven't had in a very long time. But imagine it being on this specific area of a topic. Anybody, people do, you know, cancer events, they do all these different things. But what if there was actually an event annually every year? Because April, isn't it Children's Sexual Abuse Month, Awareness Month? And, you know, as COVID lifts, we were talking about this, but just how you said that, what if it's like people that aren't even saved, they don't realize they're coming to an event for this, but it's a revival where all of these people are getting delivered. They walk through into the atmosphere, whether it's indoors or outdoors, and they don't realize as they walk over that threshing hold, right? That threshing floor, whatever you want to call it, they literally are saying yes to being free.
Yeah, and it will create the wave of awareness.
Yes.
To prevention.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then like a domino effect.
Mm-hmm.
Boom,
Yeah.
boom, 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 boom. Wow. Okay, we got work to do, guys. We got work to do. Pastor John, as a pastor and a biblical leader, do you believe there is something as a church that can be done to help the communities to be aware of this problem? Like maybe 3 steps or strategy, what would you say could be implemented to help
sorry about that. I would say begin to talk about it.
Yeah, start there.
Go there. You know, I teach the young men that I'm training in spiritual warfare, and the Holy Spirit trains not me, but I teach them to go to that place. We have to first go there, and you're going to get the reaction, because this is what our brothers and sisters have been hiding for years. Yeah. So when you mention that key word, molestation or abuse, it's going to take the body in a shock, but we need to go there. Yes. We need to have the communicate. We need to talk about it. Because once, what did James said? Confess your faults one to another. What? Pray one for that you may be healed. Now, even though it's not their fault, once it's confessed, then the healing comes right behind it. If you can get them to talk about it, then they can forgive the individual so God can righteously judge.
Thank you so much, Pastor John. That was so good. Oh my gosh. Okay, Ricky Borba. The question actually that the Holy Spirit just gave me to ask you was, as an actual example, if you sensed to something, Lord forbid, with one of your daughters, give us a scenario of what you would do.
It happened. I can give you an exact scenario.
Oh my gosh.
This is just something that happened recently, past 3 years. My daughter was 12, and I'll just make a very long story short. Extended family member. We had a pool party at my mom's house, and I will say this. Let me say this. My children know what sex is. They know that it's from God, between a man and a woman in a married home. They know that. Yes. Does not mean we need to let them watch things or hear things or anything like that, but they're very aware of what it is, because it's not something we should hide. No. So my daughters know what the word sex is. They know that mom and dad have a time alone, and that's how they became into the world and all those things. Right. So they know what that is. So they're at the pool party, and I'm finding this out later, by the way. I'm not as it's going. So my daughter tells me, yeah, I'm swimming, and this extended family member's son, who was her age, said, hey, I want to take you in the room and I want to show you porn. So my daughter calls me, and she said, this is what she said verbatim, and it's cute because it just shows her innocence. She said, Dad, what's a porn? Like, she thought it was a thing, you know? And I said, where did you hear that? And she said, I heard it from so-and-so. And I said, okay, come here. And we had a talk. And I was not happy about it at 12 years old, telling my daughter what that was. But I told her, I said, this is the bastardization of what God intended to be good. This is now what the enemy has taken. So I spoke to my daughter very clearly at 12 years old. I didn't want to sugarcoat it. No. I wanted her to know if she ever heard that word, get out of there. Yes. Because I was introduced to it at 11 years old. Jesus. It was just handed to me like, hey, this is part of growing up. And it messes up your wiring. Yeah. So thank God, because your question is, I covered my kids, covered them in prayer, covered them. Yeah. But we can't be, John, we can't be what's the word? We can't be weak in this area and not tell our kids what sex is and not talk about it at home. They have to know it's from God. They have to see mom and dad hold hands. They have to be grossed out when you're making out with your wife in the kitchen and you smack your wife's butt. They have to see that stuff. So for her to hear that word, she just knew something in her spirit was wrong. And so the hard thing to do, two things, is number one, have the talk with my daughter and let her know this is not what God intended, but without having to show her pictures or anything like that. But then the second part that's even harder, this dude looks like you. Nobody's scared of me. The father of this boy looks like you. And I had to have a man-to-man with him and say, I'm not happy with what your son did today. And you should know about this. And he just looks stone-faced. Like he knew that his son struggled with this. He didn't do anything about it. And now it was going to trickle into my family and wreck my family's legacy. I want it to stop with me. I want this to stop with me. You know, the sins of the father. I'm done. So it's not, I have a son. No, thank you. Daughters, no, thank you. But I had to have the discussion with him and say, look, you know, you could be upset with me, you could be disappointed, it doesn't matter, but you need to know that this was said and it came from your son, and that was that. So the answer to your question is, the only answer to that question is, it needs to be dealt with, because we can't sweep it under the rug. It's not gonna go away. My daughter's gonna Google that term someday and find out what it is on her own, because there's something about that word, as human beings, the way we're created, we wanna know. So that's it, you gotta deal with it.
Amen. Oh my gosh, thank you, Jesus, thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick. That was the Holy Spirit, because I did not know. So I will say this too, before we go on to this next question. The issue with even being raised in ministry or church often is, all you know about sex is don't do it. That's the problem.
Absolutely, it's shameful. Don't talk about it.
I feel like when I have kids one day, my thing is, anything that they learn, I want it to be from me and not from their friends and from the world's perspective. I want to jump start it and get it to them before anybody else can pervertedly get it to them, right? And even with sex ed and stuff, like sometimes, you know, my dad's here, but we didn't have those talks. So my first time really learning about any of that stuff was being in school in the sex ed class. And I was very confused, very uncomfortable, very like, I don't understand this, like whatever. And I actually became fearful of it, because I was always told, just don't do that. Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. But I didn't understand the magnitude of what it was and what it can cause, and the soul tie, all the different elements to it that are just besides laying on your back with somebody. You know what I mean? There's a lot more to it than just that. And so I think everything that you said was so important, and the way that you said it and how you, because it's literally handle it. You have to deal with it. And that's in anything, even if there's not sexual abuse involved or porn involved, handle this conversation. Talk to your kids before anybody else can, so that they don't have room for the promiscuity to come in from the enemy, and then the perverted side comes. Then you have to deal with a whole nother bulldog that takes years to deal with.
Yeah, that's the harder battle. The easier one was to go to the guy that was twice my size and say, this happened. You know, I did not want it to go to the other part where my daughter is coming to me and saying, look at this that I'm looking at. That's game over at that point.
Yeah. Because that's a whole nother pony. That's a whole nother pony. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. Whew. Okay, so we're gonna go to Jen really quick. Jen, your next question is, when should the conversations actually start about this topic? So kind of piggybacking off of what Ricky said, and what age is ideal for this specific conversation to take place? Did anyone tell you about these things when you were young? And if they didn't, do you wish they would have?
I think the age that you should start having the conversation with your child about their body is like when they can talk. You know, I think that conversation matures as, you know, they mature. But, you know, when they're changing your diaper, like, you know, when they're potty training, I think that, you know, it's important to tell them, you know, who can touch what, you know, diapers changing, you know, what's like, you know, like what's their body, what the boundaries are. I just think it's like important to, you know, be consistent and repetitive, you know, with the same things that you're saying as they're growing, so that they can understand. I think in my specific situation, which I know a lot of single moms can relate to, I divorced her father when she was only 1. So my concern was that she's not in my care all the time, you know, and I don't know who, you know, I mean, I know that like he would do his best to watch her, you know, her father would do his best to watch her, but because I didn't know who else would be around her, I wanted her to have a sense of knowing what was right and what's wrong for her, you know, and like, don't go in the room, you know, with just a man, you know, by yourself. Or if you feel strange, you know, like, trust that feeling and like go with your dad somewhere else, you know, like go run and, you know, like those type of conversations are really important to just confirm in a child, because they don't know and they need that affirmation. I wish that, you know, someone would have told me that when I was a baby, because I did, or not a baby, but I just wish as I was growing, I mean, even as a teenager, even like as a preteen, I there's so many experiences that happened to me that didn't have to happen because I just didn't know and no one told me. You know, my mom came from a generation where, you know, you didn't talk about those things. You know, she didn't even feel safe talking to me about sex. She just told me, don't do it. Don't have a boyfriend. Don't talk to boys. Don't, you know, like it was a lot of don'ts, right? But it was never like explaining, well, why? Or like, when should this happen? Or like, how should these, you know, like, so I think that just opening up that dialogue, the sooner the better. So I don't think that there's a time that is too soon, you know, because a lot of stuff unfortunately happens, you know, in our childhood, in early childhood, because we're innocent and we don't know. And that's where the most damage happens. And it's really, really hard to go back and undo it once it's done.
Thank you, Jennifer. And now I would like to ask Alan this very important question, and something we've been talking about now in a couple segments, but obviously what you do is not for the faint-hearted. It's not something that any man or woman can just pick up and say one day, hey, I'm gonna go pull girls out of sex trafficking rings. It's not for the faint-hearted. So having said that, Alan, how important is it for parents to be educated on what's going on out there? I mean, should we be turning a blind eye, or should we be talking about it? Should there be something in the middle? What are your thoughts about that?
If the question is, should parents become well educated in order to protect their kids from trafficking, the answer is absolutely yes. There are a lot of landmines out there, and there's a lot of predators out there, and there's a lot of people out there with bad intentions, looking for kids who are unprotected, looking for those that are vulnerable. So I would encourage all parents everywhere to take an active role in what your child is doing on the internet at all times. There's tools that can help you do that. Take an active look into who their friends are, what's going on in the homes of those friends. It's your job as a parent to protect your child from all kinds of potential dangers. And in this century, in this space and time, child trafficking is a real and active and present danger.
Thank you so much, Alan, so much for that. So now we go to Dr. Ivy Bonk, and your next question is it true that the majority of kids don't tell when this has taken place in their life, and why?
Is it true that kids don't tell? Well, I guess a lot of kids don't tell, probably, if they were shut down like I was, because now see, the CDC, here's the connection. The CDC tells us that 80 to 85% of childhood abuse happens at the hand of a parent or or caregiver, excuse me. If you add in family or friends, like relatives or friends of family, that number can go up as high as 90 to 95%. And so and the research also tells us, if this abuse, if this offense is perpetrated at the hand of someone in your circle of trust, then the impact of that is much, much greater. And the other thing that we need to understand is that this is generational and cyclical, right? So it definitely is learned behaviors, unfortunately. So yeah, so if you're going to know, right? If you're in an environment that's not, again, we talked about being consistent, dependable, and predictable. So if you don't feel, you can feel, in your spirit, if that's not where you are, that's not where you live. So if that's the case, then obviously you're not going to be sharing and all these things you can hear in the responses to your questions, how all these things are connected, because again, what I say, everything is predicated on relationship. So if you're taking time, you're building that trust. Denise's book talks about this as well. So you're building these moments, right? These times of connection and validation and valuing the child, that they're going to build, that trust is going to build. And if something happened, again, if they say something happened, you hear that a lot as well, is that kids will come and say something that happened in the family, and the parent don't want to believe it. And it's probably more that they don't want to believe it about the person, the perpetrator, if it's a close family member, or there's something again in their own life that has not been addressed. But you definitely want to listen, because if you don't listen, if this keeps happening and the person closest to them is not willing to listen and validate and value, then guess what? They're going to go talk to someone else, and somebody else might listen. And then it just perpetrates and exacerbates the problem. And you've heard stories about, abuse within families. I know women who would tell me that their brothers violated them, or their cousin, or this kind of thing. And again, because it's again a pathology in the family, it's generational. So these behaviors are getting passed along. This is like a familiar spirit. This is something that's hanging around the house. And so you have to recognize that. And at the same time, certainly there are children with, you could say, deviant behavior, but I would very much caution against criminalizing children. Again, they're in a process of development. It's hard, especially when somebody's been hurt or violated. But we are in much need in this country of some restorative and healing practices, and the church should be somebody that's leading the way in that area. And we know this kind of thing likes to hide inside the church. My offense wasn't perpetrated at the hand of my father per se, but, and I didn't mention this earlier when we were talking about the variability. I mean, I've heard it said, and I say it all the time, the worst thing that happens is not the actual event. It wasn't the fact that my uncle sexually molested me, although that was not good, it's horrible, was the fact, it was the lie that I believed as a result of it. So when my parents, the part my parents played by not recognizing, validating, was worse for me than what my uncle, because then I believed that I wasn't worthy to be regarded. And when that takes hold, that lie takes hold, and then you begin to believe that about yourself, you become vulnerable and susceptible to whatever else is coming down the pike. And so although it didn't happen at the hand of my father, the physical act, you could say, by him not validating, him brushing under the rug, as I said, then that had to communicate to me that it was okay. From the church's point of view, this kind of behavior must be okay. And again, we're seeing it. We see a lot of that now. It's coming out. It's being dealt with. So yeah, but so the church needs to be the leader in this. The community of faith needs to be a leader in this, but at the same time, then that requires us to deal with our own stuff.
So I have another question for you before we go to our last round for everybody else. How did being sexually abused as a child affect you and your relationships as an adult with men when you grew up?
Me being sexually abused as a child it definitely had a significant impact on my identity, on my self-worth, I can say. I didn't know until I was older, the impact that really made on me. Until I did self-reflection, and I, went through process, journey of healing and therapy and all of that. But I carried so much shame and guilt, and this unworthiness of feeling like I was unworthy of really being loved. uh, and and because I never really dealt with it until like later on in life, I would pick the wrong guy. You know, I would pick someone that would abuse me, you know, whether it was mentally, emotionally, you know, physically or whatever. I just feel like I picked that because it was like what I knew and what I believed about myself, or what I felt like I deserved. I think that's what it was, what I felt like I deserved.
Thank you, Jennifer. And now I have my final two questions for my friend Alan Smyth of Saving Innocence. Alan, in seeing what you've seen, which is just got to be grueling at some times, let's just be honest. Do you even think that child sexual abuse is something that can be prevented?
That's an interesting question. Do I believe that child sexual abuse is something that can be prevented? Boy, I sure hope so. I mean, that's the very last thing that we should be allowing to happen to our children. Any kind of abuse is horrific, of course, but some kind of sexual abuse, most often perpetrated by adults, and most often perpetrated by those adults that are close enough to the children. Yeah, can it be prevented? I sure hope that it can be. A higher degree of protection from the parents around them, letting only trusted people close enough to their kids is a big part of it. Helping to educate your children as to the potentials that are out there. Certainly age appropriate will be important, but I think it can be prevented and it should be prevented. And parents and those close to their little ones need to take an active role and be the guardian of such horrors.
Thank you, Alan. My final question for you, my friend, is what can parents do at home right now today to start down the road of protecting their children?
I have a lot of advice for parents out there to protect their children, and I've already said a lot of it. Be vigilant with the internet. Be vigilant. Understand where they're going. There's different kind of software you can get that put on your computer and on their phone that'll report to you whatever website they've been to. I say do all those things. You know, there's a little sort of an idea here that parents need to, I think, embrace, and that's this. You know that phone, that cell phone that your child has? If your kid's old enough to have a cell phone, and your kid has a cell phone, has a smartphone, that phone, I'm guessing, was purchased by you. And I'm guessing that you pay the monthly bill. You know what? That makes it your phone. You should let your child know that that's actually your phone you're lending to them. Aren't you nice? Isn't that amazing of you to let your child use your phone? And let them know that you get to look at it anytime you want. You get to check out your phone. You get to see what's on there. See what photos are on there. See what the search history is. I think that's what an engaged parent should do. And then there's one more tool that I'd love for you all to get. A friend of mine named Rachel Thomas, who's a survivor of trafficking, recently released a phenomenal video series called the Cool Aunt Series. TheCoolAuntSeries.com. Go there as soon as possible. Buy the program. It's geared for teens, primarily young girls, but little boys should watch it too. But it's primarily young girls that are being, pursued in this way. And have your child watch this. Take about an hour. There's 8 or 9 different short little videos with a little quiz at the end. You can watch it with them. I think that'd be a great way to go. Rachel goes through the tactics of a predator, the different things to be aware of and watch, and your child will be much better educated for it. So get the Cool Aunt Series. Go to CoolAuntSeries.com. And that's my best advice to give to parents to help protect their children from predators and from sex trafficking. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alan. We appreciate you beyond words for that. So Dr. Ivy, in closing for your last questions, what are some of the signs that a child could be being abused and or was abused so that we can learn how to really tackle those situations? And then I also ask, as a parent, we don't want to think that this can happen or ever happen to us in our families, but we can't be oblivious to it. So what are the things that we can look out for in order to prevent this from happening within our home and the homes around us and our ministries?
You're asking about what are some of the responses or behaviors to look for or signs to look for. Again, again, this is very individual. So it's gonna, and life, emotions and behavior, just like life, is on a continuum, right? And so when a trauma comes, its breach comes, and separates us from our true self, creates this false persona, we can respond and react in varying ways based on how those different variables, come together in our life. It's really is so very individual like that. They call the research calls fight, flight, or freeze. So you're either on dissociative, deflective, self-protecting, or coming out swinging, or somewhere, in between, right? So again, when you build trust, you build relationship, you're going to recognize things. You're going to be attentive, especially if you've dealt with your own stuff. And again, remember, when you're dealing with kids, they're still in development mode, so they're not even capable, you could say, in some senses, to deal with any of this. Part of the problem, we don't see things, and we can say parents are oblivious. Parents can be oblivious because they're blinded by their own junk they haven't dealt with. That's probably the main thing. Just saying it didn't happen, I'm leaving my past behind, doesn't work, because not only can you have a heart healing, that's one part of the process, right? You can forgive, you can do that kind of thing, but it still has an impact. You have to recognize, you have to go back. We hear a lot of people talking about erasing history. We don't want to erase history. We want to learn and grow from it. There's a word in the African culture called Sankofa. I love that word. It's like one of my favorite words, but it means to go back and get what was stolen. So if we erase history, we just put things in the past, right? And without processing and understanding how they impacted us, right? Then we don't get the gold that's back there. So we don't want to do that. So, there can be that level of heart healing that's good. We've actually really, truly have forgiven our perpetrator, but it impacts us physiologically. I mean, there's all kind of, it impacts we've created neurological pathways where we make decisions certain ways, we behave certain ways. And so you can get a heart healing, but still have these ruts in your neurological pathways where you keep doing the same kind of behavior over and over because that was what you learned out of your maladaptive state, right? So some of the times when parents are oblivious, it's because they hadn't dealt with their own stuff. And so I would challenge parents, people with charge over children, to make sure that you have dealt with and addressed your own stuff. Very, very, very important. I mean, and there could be also, so we talked about, the continuum, the emotional continuum, so to speak, but there's also, because it affects you, like I just said, in different kinds of ways. So I remember my daughter. Now I didn't recognize it then, but looking back, the nurse was calling me almost 2 or 3 times a week. My daughter was in the nurse's office complaining of a stomach ache. Well, her mother and father were getting a divorce. So, that probably was what that was about. Although she didn't articulate that to me, and I wasn't of mind to even ask her, right? I was in survival mode, which when you're in the midst of that is typically where you are. Again, we're talking about a big topic in a short time, so.
Ooh, all right. Thank you so much for that one. Yeek! We have Pastor John. This is your final question. You are someone that is confronted every day with this aftermath of this problem. What would you like to see change for the next generations to come? And what should we do to at least start marching in that direction?
I would like to see eradication of sexual abuse, all types of abuse, but sexual abuse. I would love to see that eradicated. And what we need to do is listen, communicate, listen, look at the signs, the verbal and nonverbal signs that children may have, and don't be afraid to speak about it. Mention that keyword, sexual abuse. Anyone hurt you, get straight to the point, because people want to talk about it, but it's a spirit of fear on them. They have fear. And when they got abused, they was told, don't say nothing, you'll ruin the family, or I'll hurt somebody, whatever was the message was. And implied to them, but you have to break that down by communication and doing it and listening, letting them know that you really love them and care about them. And then that breakthrough will come. But what I would love to see is eradication of this. And I believe it can be done through the awareness, talking about it, listening, communication, taking action. You know, always take action. So
Yeah,
that's the key.
that's good. Thank you so much, Pastor John. Then we have Jennifer. This is your closing. Last question for you, dear. What advice would you give to a parent that has gone through this or is going through this now, and one that could possibly go through it in the future, which we're hoping to prevent this so that it actually just stops, as Pastor said, eradicating it? And what encouragement would you like to give to a child that has actually been through it?
The encouragement that I would give to a child that is going through this, could possibly go through this, it would be to speak up. To speak up. You know, I did not speak up, and I suffered in silence for many years. And I was so thankful that my daughter, you know, used her voice and spoke up, and I listened. You know, there will be someone that will listen, you know, and I just think, you know, don't be silent. You know, there's counselors at school, there's teachers that are mandated to report to social services these things happening. If it is your parents, or if it is someone authority that you can't tell at home, you know, there's so many different resources, there's hotlines. I just don't suffer in silence. You know, get out there and use your voice, and don't and I don't want to say don't be afraid, because it is a very fearful thing, you know, to happen to you, but don't just speak up, and don't think there's anything that you did that was wrong.
Thank you so much, Jen. We really appreciate you so much for being with us, and we can't wait for all that's to come with you for the future. So I'm going to Ricky Borba now. Ricky, what would be some last statements that you would make, even some bullet points that you want to give the people, the same, either kids that could possibly be put in the situation, and as well ministry leaders, on how to just really make this very apparent and potent so it stops?
So I think for children, because I can speak as someone who's come out of it, you're not going to be harmed by telling someone. Even if your perpetrator is telling you they're going to harm you, they are not. Because the minute you tell someone, there's going to be a lot of things that person's going to have to deal with, and they're not going to be around you. So number one, you're safe. Number two, to our community leaders, pastors, legislatures, people in power that don't want to talk about this for whatever reason, and I don't want to assume why, but it has to be talked about. This has to be something we talk about. We need to protect our children, which leads me to my final point, which is, as a man, I'm supposed to take care of and provide and cover and protect my family. And a lot of people think that's just my children. But the reality is that I'm supposed to also protect my family extended, my friends. If you see something with your own family, you need to step in. It's your job. If you've been given the sight, we'll use that word sight, if you've been given the vision and the sight to see these things, then it's your responsibility to step in and take care of it. Much like with my own daughter I talked about earlier, and my extended family member's son, I had to step in and say something. If your nephew is staying the night and you're noticing behavior, address it and deal with it. This is not something that is their problem. Or as you with your family found out, she came from Brazil. It's not just a Brazilian thing or a Spanish thing or Middle East thing. It's all over the world. And so if you're, I'm going to use the word privileged. If you're privileged enough to be able to see it, then God has called you to deal with it as well. He's given you hands and feet for a reason and vision. And so it's our duty to just not look at our own children and protect our own kids and have our own little bubble. But, you know, we have extended family and friends that God has put in our life as well that we're called to protect as well. So I would also encourage men, specifically men, to keep an eye out, to be bold, and to take that as your mantle of responsibility.
Yes. Woo. That's good. That's good, right? And you know, I want to add something to that and piggyback on that. There's a saying that I always have, especially being in the kingdom of God, is that if I'm good and you're not good, then I'm really not good. Let's get you good so that we can both be good. And that's the awareness of what's around you. It's like I also say, like, if you're the only one at the top, you haven't done your job. Everyone around you that are ready, right, and in position, they should be right there with you. If you're doing kingdom, if something's happening around you and you see it or you've heard it, then you heard it and saw it for a reason. So your family and you are not okay if you know that that's happening to them. Get them okay, handle it, nip it in the bud so then everybody can be good. So that, kingdom.
Good.
That's kingdom. That's kingdom. And so we're going to go to our closing with our creator and founder and CEO of Super Agent Safety Squad, our Denise Rodriguez. What would be a message you would like to send to all the parents that are watching this video today, right now, ministry leaders, educators, anybody that sees this? What is your message to them?
Don't be afraid. Be brave, because the next generation depends on us. If we just feel victimized, or if we just see people that we love being victims and that's it, then it's going to keep happening. So we got. There's a point that you got to say, we're going to do something about it. So it needs braveness. It's not an easy topic to talk about. We know that, and that's why we're here. You know, I just really wish I could translate my heart to the parents at home right now. You know, because sometimes it's so hard to break those walls. But it needs to be broken. Someone needs to start. So let's start being brave with our kids. And then step it out of our comfort zone and talk about with our friends, with our family. So that way we create a wave of goodness, you know, for our kids, for our next generation, for the kids of our kids. They depend on us now. So let's do something about it.
Now. Let's do something about it now.
Now.
Thank you so much for your vision, for hearing God, dreaming with God, and actually moving in obedience with God.
Yes.
We appreciate you so much. And I want to just close with this, you guys. If you have a child or someone around you that has heavy levels of anxiety, that has heavy levels of depression, that has heavy levels of, like, they were once joyful and now they're really sad all the time, I need you to ask the question. You have to ask. Those are some of the most prominent signs that something has happened or is happening. And there's no more level of discomfort than knowing it's going on and you don't do anything about it. That's the worst part. Have the conversation. So we're just so grateful that you guys were willing to click and watch and download and share and open this up to your ministry. You're doing more justice if you share it with other people. We're grateful for you even acknowledging that this is something that needs to really be dealt with and to help heal the broken and restore the lost. As well as, you know, hey, we're doing a movement where you can adopt a ministry or you can adopt a school. You can literally order the book. You can order it in bulk and partner with us. And then we deliver them directly to whoever you wanted to sponsor or get these books to. So it's children ministries. It's educational locations. It's anywhere that you know that this could be a problem. Let's get it to them. Let's be the answer and be the solution so that we can save more kids' lives. We appreciate you guys. We want you to support everyone that was a part of this roundtable, those via video and those via present on the stage, and for all that's to come. There is more coming. Super Agent Safety Squad is a sound that's being released now and that will continue to be released until the return of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So why not say yes to it? Why not join us in it? Why not support it? Why not be why we build and release the protection and the shield of God over all these children across the world and teens and youth and adults, right? Because even the ones that are the ones doing it, like our brother said, it's because it's been done to them. So if we can heal even from the top down, the down won't even be affected by it anymore because the top has been delivered and healed from it. So we love you guys so much. We appreciate you. We thank you for joining us. Reach out to us. Go to www.sasskids.com and actually email us, talk with us, so we can make sure you stay involved, get our newsletters, and stay involved with what Denise is doing, so that you have all the tools that you need for your children to learn in the most fun, creative way how to become Super Agent Safety Squad. We love you guys. Mwah. God bless. Bye.